Good now, revolutionaries, and welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show. Today is Wednesday, March 18th. I can't believe I forgot to say yesterday, happy St. Patty's Day to all who celebrate March 17th. I even wore my green hat. It just flew right by me. Sorry about that. And if you were celebrating yesterday, I hope my voice is not too loud in your ears this morning. Did you guys get turned up on a Tuesday?
I walked past an Irish pub.
Whoa, I think it counts.
I think it counts. And I had a slightly green shirt on.
Yeah, nobody pinched you?
I forgot that it was the holiday because Tybie's parade was on Saturday, so I just had in my head that it was over the weekend. But then Savannah's was yesterday. So when I tried to go to the hardware store off the island, all of a sudden I was aggressively reminded that it is, in fact, St. Patty's Day in Savannah, and it was bad. So I hear it was a good time.
I'm sure. Yeah, you heard
Yeah,
it
and
all
then
the way
Boston
home.
was a mess just throughout the entire weekend. So, you know, as is the way of Boston on St. Patrick's Day.
The way of your people. One of the biggest celebrations probably anywhere in the world, I would imagine.
Yeah, Boston, Chicago, New York, and Savannah.
Savannah
I
is
don't know how
above
Savannah
a couple
started.
of those.
I don't know how the whole Savannah St. Patrick's Day thing started. There's I don't even think there are Irish people in Savannah, but clearly there's something about St. Patrick's Day that really vibes hard with the Savannah crowd.
Well, St. Patty's Day is that one holiday where it comes around and all of a sudden 99% of the people that exist are Irish. And so there's a lot of Irish appropriation happening. But yeah, I don't know where it came from. Although I can tell you like the official logo of Savannah, if it's not a banana, is a shamrock. It's everywhere.
Really?
Oh yeah. The air station's official patch is the helicopter in front of a shamrock.
Hey, they found a way to boost their economy, and they really ran with it, and they did a great job. So
Oh my God,
kudos
it's huge.
to city planning at Savannah, Georgia.
The city becomes impassable, and I think one of the reasons it gets such a high ranking in the St. Patty's Day parades and festivals or whatever around the world is because of how many more people than live in Savannah come to Savannah just for the thing. So the population more than doubles or some insane statistic. I don't remember exactly what it is, but there's hundreds of thousands of people come in for it.
And I'll say the Savannah's a really cool town. For those of you who may have never been to Savannah, but maybe you've been to New Orleans and maybe you've been to Charleston. Yeah. It's the combination between New Orleans and Charleston. If you haven't been to either two, then this analogy is totally missed on you. But it's 75% Charleston, 25% New Orleans is what I would say is the mix.
But it doesn't smell like pee.
Fun spot. Yeah, it doesn't have the pee, which is why I like New Orleans better. It's dirtier and grimier. Gets the juices flowing.
We got TK in the comments who said Savannah's parade is epic. Crypto Angel who says top of the morning to you. I went to an Irish restaurant with friends and got to hear bagpipes. It was wonderful. And Leif who says my great granny was a Bailey, so I think that counts. And Jahid, I think having a red beard counts. I am so glad that we got to bring the spirit of the holiday into the show. I've got my green hat on, but of course,
one day late.
In addition to all things holidays, this is your place for helpful news, commentary, answers to your crypto questions. And I am so thrilled to welcome today's guest. She is a builder. She is a technical writer. She said backstage, ZKP, and I heard Alex go, but that's not all. She is also the Oklahoma chapter president for Stand With Crypto and the U.S.-Canada underboss for the Bitcoin Pizza Day party, the Pizza Mafia in the building. Please welcome for the first time to the Rise Up Morning Show, our friend and yours, Caulene McDonald. Caulene, how the heck are you? It's so good to see you.
I am amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. I see a little echo, my bad.
No. It's just the MLB effect. Mike Piazza.
Right, of course. I appreciate you guys allowing me to come on and share some space with you this morning. I am excited to get to it. I also didn't realize that it was St. Patty's Day yesterday. So I feel like it kind of just also flew by me. Maybe it's just like an earlier in life situation for some of us. I'm not sure, but I was very you know,
Yeah.
it's okay. Who cares?
Well,
I'll be all right.
I did
And we don't have any cool.
I did really enjoy my girlfriend works for a Turkish company, and they had St. Patrick's Day as a holiday on their calendar. And the Turkish folks in the States were like, wait, this is a holiday. And like none of them showed up for work except for Violet. Violet was like, guys, I'm working. They asked her, it's like, why are you working? She's like, this isn't a holiday. Like, no, it's on our calendar. It's a holiday. We have off. And then they checked with HR. They all checked into worked for an hour, were super pissed off about it. And then they all checked off at like 11 o'clock in the morning. They're like, no, it's a holiday. Screw this. Just like a very, I know Turkey's not exactly Europe, but like very like, European-esque, approach.
Yeah.
I was like, that's really nice. I really enjoy that.
100%. I love those. I used to work for like a guy out of Hungary, and they have kind of like that very laxed, kind of laissez-faire approach to some of their work and stuff like that. I love it.
Hey, any excuse to day off, I'm a fan of it.
Right.
Caulene, we have a couple of folks in the comments saying hello, good morning, and one is saying, "Hey, fellow Oklahoman here." Is that what you say, Oklahoman? Are you from Oklahoma? An Okie? Isn't that what they say in the?
That is what they say.
Is it really?
No,
okay.
I am not. Yeah, it is. Everyone just kind of says Okie on everything. I'm not originally from Oklahoma. I was born outside of Chicago, and then I spent like 13 years in Denver and Colorado Springs area in Colorado as a result of being in the military. And so I just kind of stayed around there after I got out of the military. But I have some family in Oklahoma, and so after a while, I was like, maybe I should spend some time with that side of the family. And so I just kind of moseyed on over here, and it ended up being a really good thing. So yeah. And Oklahoma sunsets.
Are they?
They're fantastic. Oh yeah. Okay. They last forever. They're amazing.
Okay. Note to self, we got to catch an Oklahoma sunset at Caulene's place. How did you come from military service to staying with cryptocurrency, the pizza mafia? What's your journey like for people who don't know?
Yeah. So when I was in the military, I was actually in Afghanistan. And for anyone who's, a veteran or something, once you're kind of stationed somewhere, movies become something that's really important. So soldiers are bringing like terabytes and terabytes of all different kinds of video. And so I found myself watching one of the first like Bitcoin documentaries. And I watched it and I immediately understood what it was. But I was like, I don't know anything about computers. Like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to interact with this technology and like not get scammed, right? And so I just kind of waited. Like, once I hear about it again, I'm going to know that it's like enough, right? And so I went into college after I left the military, and another veteran was my college roommate. So him and I would just kind of like sit around, drink whiskey, play chess, and he would tell me about how he was like swing trading Ethereum, basically. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So this is like 2017 now. And then I just started really digging in at that point. And then I realized, well, I can kind of learn whatever I want, right? Like, this is 2017. I can Google anything. And so that's what I just started doing. So started to try to understand like consensus, proof of work versus proof of stake. Like, what are the actual differences? What does that mean for how these, different protocols actually function? And from there, it just became, I'm interested in privacy. I'm interested in like all of these cool things. And so I got really interested in zero knowledge proofs. And I went to Bitcoin Investor Week in like 2025. I made some really good friends. I did like a crypto academy with Anthony Pompliano. He's a controversial figure for some in Bitcoin, but at least he's trying to educate people. So I'm down with it. And it ended up being a really cool experience. I met a lot of really cool people, folks who are building all of their own stuff all over the country. And from there, I was just like, I'm going all in. And so that's what we did. And I just started, I actually became I understood it pretty easily, more easily than I thought that I would. I thought it was going to be a lot harder. So it's just like the programming stuff that I had to kind of play catch up with. But now at this point, like, you really don't even need that anymore with AI and everything like that. The most you need to do is like, obviously check your functions and make sure that nobody can hack them. So you have to test them and things like that if you're vibe coding, but that's really it. But yeah, so then Stand with Crypto, they found out that I was in Oklahoma, and so I was kind of headhunted on LinkedIn. They found me that way. And they were like, hey, we, kind of looked you up. We saw some of the articles that you've written, blah, blah, blah. We think you'd be a great fit for Oklahoma State Chapter President. And I was like, whoa, absolutely. Let's do this,
Yeah, of course. Thanks for reaching out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how crypto is. Like, in order to get into the space, in order to break into the space professionally, like, you first have to make friends with various different peoples. Like, it's very difficult for somebody who's never been in finance, whatever, to just like fill out an application and then just like get hired somewhere. You first have to make a lot of friends for a lot of time. And it worked out. So here we are, Now I'm doing Pizza DAO stuff. Snacks is amazing. Scrimmy is amazing. And SWC and Pizza DAO are even like partnering together this year for the Bitcoin Pizza Party. And, I'm coordinating with like all of these US cities. It's just going to be insane. And I'm super excited about it. So we're going full tilt now.
We're going full tilt now. Pizza DAO, for everybody who watches our show, they're friends of the show, but Pizza DAO is really worldwide. Do you have any inside alpha? I got the text the other day in my Memphis chat about like, hey, time to think about organizing the next party. And I was talking to Snacks about it in Denver, but do you have any? I know we're shooting for, last year it was like 420, I think it was a couple more, but like 420 satellites, and Snacks had said we're going for 690 this year, just like to keep the memes going. Any inside alpha for the Pizza Day?
I will say that if you're in the Memphis chat, you probably saw the Benny bot kind of post in there and talk about the RSV dot pizza. So that's the really cool thing that we're innovating this year is like kind of finding a way for the local hosts to be able to streamline their execution process for the party. And so Pizza DAO actually coded that internally. And they created like this whole platform so that hosts can kind of log in and, submit, this is where we want our event. This is what we want for budgets. This is what we want for partners, whatever. And it just kind of keeps everybody online. As far as like true inside alpha, all I'm going to say is it's going to be awesome. We're even going to be in cities that we weren't in last year. But globally, we do have like an interactive pizza map. So you can actually see where all the parties were last year. And I mean, we've even had parties in Ukraine while they're being like shelled by Russia. We have parties in Ethiopia, in Afghanistan. There is no continent that is untouched by the Pizza DAO Global Pizza Party. So that's only going to get bigger as time goes on. Snacks is amazing.
I always am a little bit out of the loop. I have all their handles at pizza_DAO if you're on X. Globalpizza.party is the URL. What's the best, fastest way? Someone is listening to this right now and they're like, oh, snap, I want to see if there's one in Timbuktu or one in Albuquerque or Schenectady or wherever I am. And if not, I'd like to host one. So how do I find one? And then how do I like maybe get involved?
So if you really want to host a party, I would suggest reaching out to one of the underbosses, which would be me. You can find me on, X, and then I can point you in the direction based on whatever region that you're in. That's probably the best way to go. As far as, what already existed before, that would be kind of this Pizza DAO, this Pizza DAO map here. I'm going to show it to you in the chat so that you can actually see it and you can show it if you want to.
I am hip to it. I'm having a hard time getting to globalpizza.party. That's the website it will live at for anybody listening in the future.
Yeah.
Is it coming up for you?
Kind of like, I'm trying to pull it up now. Let me see if it'll work.
Got it. No. I got it.
While you guys are doing that, I would just like to add that while at ETH Denver, it was so nice to go to Pizza DAO's party, because after several days of standing and really not having like too much food, and it's usually just like drinks here and there, and then going to a party at like the end of the day and then finally getting something to eat that isn't just a small snack between conversations. And it was actually legitimately really good pizza. I don't know if the pizza's always that quality, but this time at Denver, it was really good pizza. And it like totally energized me for the rest of the night and even like the next day to finally have like a full meal and to talk crypto with people while having delicious pizza was awesome. It was really nice.
Yeah, they did a really great job. And that's like one of the things too, that all the local like hosts that we have, you know, we want them to partner with the local best tasting pizzeria. Like if you go to a global pizza party, you're not going to get like Domino's typically, or like Papa John's. Like you can, you know, and no shade to those pizzas. They're great. But we really like to focus on, you know, building those local communities. And part of that is supporting the local pizzeria that has like, it's kind of like the, you know, the pizzeria nobody really talks about, but everybody knows about, that has like the best pizza in your area. Those are the people that we're trying to host. Oh yeah, that map. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Look at that map.
It's amazing.
It's insane.
Now, I know what's awesome. I know everybody loves pizza, but like India loves pizza.
Dude,
yeah.
From Karachi to Kathmandu, there is pizza. You were not lying about every continent. And I do see some notable, maybe missing spots, like looks like North Dakota, South Dakota. Not a lot going on over there.
Not a lot of Siberian pizza parties.
Yeah, what's up with that, Siberia? Also, looks like maybe Wyoming needs a pizza Dow party. If you're in Montana, you could be helping to have an event. Kansas City, but what about West Kansas over here? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
West Texas needs one.
Yeah, we are trying to build out some of those cities. So if you're interested in throwing a pizza party, reach out to me. We do have someone doing Cheyenne, Wyoming this year. So there'll be something in Wyoming. And we're working on South Dakota, North Dakota right now. But this like global coordination, it adds a fair level of complexity. And so we kind of like separate the globe by regions, and each underboss covers a different region. And then we just do our best to blanket the world in pizza, essentially. Snacks likes to say that like pizza is tech. And I think that he's right. So
yeah, we can get pizza in Afghanistan, lads. Let's go.
Yeah. I'm thinking we need to, on May 22nd, we need to have some pizza live on air. And if you want to host a pizza party, we'll get you in touch with the folks at Pizza Dow. You too can connect with an underboss and join the mafia. It's a really great way to have a good time, introduce people to crypto, and like no pressure. And Stand With Crypto is going to be involved too. They always are involved. Like pepperoni and pizza. I feel like Stand With Crypto and Pizza Dow is a partnership made in heaven. Like really, there's a lot of great synergy there.
Yeah, we try really hard to support each other. Stand With Crypto really loves what Snacks does. And, you know, Snacks really loves what Stand With Crypto does from like an advocacy perspective too. And so they just mesh really well. And some of the leadership on both sides, they've known each other for a long time. And, you know, if they support each other's projects, what better way than to start building with your friends, you know? And that's essentially how that goes. But yeah, we have, if for any state that doesn't have a pizza party yet, we're trying to get, you know, Stand With Crypto presidents in those states to throw the local pizza party so that every single state will have one, and there won't be any more gaps on that map for the US this year. That's the plan.
That's
so we're
a good plan.
Yeah.
You know, tell us a little more about Stand With Crypto, because we've talked about it on the show before, and we've shared something. We'd like to talk with more representatives, because everyone we've ever talked to from the organization has been really civically engaged, involved, helpful, friendly. But I feel like there's, you know, always room for more voices in the movement, and we can always do better in terms of reaching out to help our representatives understand crypto, helping our neighbors understand crypto. But what's the mission right now? What's the focus? And for people who don't know, what is Stand With Crypto?
Yeah, so Stand With Crypto is a 501c3, or excuse me, 501c4 nonprofit, nonpartisan political advocacy and education organization. So Stand With Crypto does not do like 501c6 activity that would be like negotiating language for a particular bill for lobbying. We essentially will say, hey, you know, like the Clarity Act, for example, the Clarity Act is being debated right now. You should email your senator, something like that. And, you know, you might get, if you make a little profile on Stand with Crypto, you can just select through if you want to email your senator, and it's kind of like already baked together for you. So you don't have to do tons of work to be able to advocate on behalf. So we represent like 2.7, I think now, million crypto users across the United States. In Oklahoma, I represent 22,344 people who are all crypto curious or crypto advocates who want their voices to be heard. And that's really what it's about. And so the chapter presidents, we spend a lot of time like on the Capitol, maybe teaching legislators, creating partnerships in local community, going to chambers of commerce, just to explain to businesses and regulators, hey, this is what crypto is. And obviously each state is going to have kind of their own internal conversations. And so it's really helpful to have a crypto representative that's local in that state to be able to speak on kind of those state intricacies. And I think it really helps. So like next week, for example, on the 25th, I will be in the Oklahoma State Capitol teaching regulators about Bitcoin, because Oklahoma does a lot of Bitcoin legislation here over the last few years. They're not necessarily ready for like crypto more broadly, but many of them don't truly understand the technology, and they want to. And for me, personally, it's all about like, how can you make an informed decision on legislation if you don't know what it is? And so that's my role, is to educate them. And then when they're ready to vote on or to do whatever with that legislation, we reach out to the advocates in Oklahoma and we say, hey, how do you guys feel about this? This is where it's at. Do you, email your senator, call your senator or representative, whomever. And we just really try our best to link people up with these like complex governance systems so that they're not too confused and their voice can still be heard. And so that's really what Stand with Crypto is doing.
And quick shout out to one of the very first guests that we ever had before this was even a show.
Yeah.
When it was a podcast. Carrie, who joined us with Mikey. I mean, at this point, this was, I don't even know how many years ago. Evan, was it in 22 or 23, something like that?
I think it was at the start of 2022 when they came.
Yeah, that was crazy. She was not involved with Stand with Crypto at that point, but
no.
she's a monster. And now
I think she's a powerhouse of a human being.
She's in California, right? As a chapter president over there.
She is.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, she's the chapter president in California. And there are a few chapter presidents who are powerhouses like Carrie. So we have Elizabeth in Detroit. We have Christian in New York. We have even Mike in Vegas, me in Oklahoma, Ari in Washington. And so these folks come from all over the place, all types of different backgrounds, even Shekinah for West Virginia. We have like people who used to be lawyers that are now like educating people on crypto. We've got people who, are just kind of regular folks that are doing advocacy and president kind of events for people in the local community. It's wild. But Carrie is like a prime example of like a powerhouse of a human being. And part of that is because like she's in California, right? And California is obviously, you have to be good to be in California, number one. Number two, California is like, kind of technical by nature at this point, ever since all the social media platforms and all the big tech companies moved out to California. If we're going to have someone in California, we're all glad that it's Carrie, basically.
I mean, people just have to remember California is what, the fourth or fifth biggest economy on the planet. So like, it doesn't make any sense. Fourth. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Insane.
Holding it down.
Yeah. It's also a crazy stat. It's 1 in 6 or 1 in 5. I think it's 1 in 6 Americans are Californians. Pretty crazy.
Jeez.
When you put it like that, it's pretty crazy. It's a lot. It's a big state quasi country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's next for Stand with Crypto, and what's the best way for people who are curious, who haven't yet, to get involved there?
So I would definitely suggest making a profile on the standwithcrypto.org website. That will help you. And then whatever state that you're in, there is going to be a president that's associated with that state. So you can go to like LinkedIn, for example, and you can just kind of like search Stand with Crypto, and you can see all like the people that are linked with the organization, and you'll find somebody that's in your state. And, you know, again, everyone's going to have my information on here. So if you can't find anything on LinkedIn, just shoot me a message and I can forward you to the correct person. And we'll get you all sorted in that way. But every chapter president puts on at least 4 events a year. And you can go to those events, network with other people. They'll do, you know, teaching and workshops. Elizabeth in Michigan, she does a lot of workshops for people, like how DeFi works. She was at the DC Blockchain Summit this past week. And even Gilberto, he's in Washington, D.C. He was also at the DC Blockchain Summit. So these guys are all over the place. If you have trouble finding yours, just reach out to me and I will get you to the correct person to help you out.
That is standwithcrypto.org. And once you get there, right underneath the headline, join the fight is going to be the fastest way, to sign up and create a free account. You can log in with Google. You can give them an email address. You can connect a wallet. I remember at the time of the last election, they had a couple of collectibles like on-chain credentials you could get, non-fungible tokens for doing things like calling your senator, and everything on the website it's a good website. They've got a little advocacy toolkit. They've got press releases, support if you want to have an event. They really are a very available, helpful organization. And Caulene's is at Caulene. Is that Amaji on X? Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, I say it as Amagi, but it's a Sumerian word for freedom. It's like the oldest word for freedom.
Wow. Amagi, the oldest word for freedom? Oh my God.
I like that.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah, Caulene is free and she will be free.
Hell yeah, let's go. Okay, all right. Caulene is free and she's here to help answer your crypto questions. If you've got a question about Stand with Crypto, the Clarity Act, Pizza DAO, or something else, let us know. Backstage, that was something you said you wanted to get into, so I would be glad to get into it for just a minute. Will, I know you've got a couple of things and I will bring them to you before we go, but you, whoever you are, wherever you are, if you've got a crypto question, leave it in the comments. Also, I know, Will, you put out a bounty for great charts. We'll talk about it later. I'm thinking I need to put a bounty out for podcast reviews. You know what I would love is if everybody listening to the show would leave us a podcast review, because it's one thing to create helpful crypto content, but your reviews, your comments, your engagement, if you want to help the show or help crypto tell a better story, then you can help us become more visible by leaving a review. I think I'm going to put a bounty out for that. I think we're just going to have to start doing it weekly. So you can get ahead of the curve. Maybe there's a cash prize. Maybe you can win some of Will's money or money from the Rise Up Treasury. Leave us a review on Apple, on Spotify, your favorite platform, and let others know what you like about the show. Then leave us your questions and we'll get to them. But for now, Caulene, Alex, do you guys want to have a fight about the Clarity Act?
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of wanted to roast the DC Blockchain Summit first.
Okay.
That's classic Alex behavior. Let's go.
Okay. I have to share the screen because I was like, I knew it was happening, but I didn't know who was like the sponsor. So first of all, there you go, Sergey, getting that
Mr. Chainlink,
getting that front, that banner shot. But like, can we please just read the sponsors list here and ask ourselves if this really feels like the lineup that we want representing the industry in DC, in Washington, DC, which is a notorious United States of America city for anyone unfamiliar. Chili's. Okay.
What?
Unicoin. All right.
Oh, no. Wait. I thought that was Chili's, like.
I thought it was Chili's, the restaurant.
Ribs. Yeah.
No, I mean the obsolete project that I thought was dead 5 years ago.
Yeah. Crypto project, not the neighborhood eatery.
Unicoin. Never heard of it. Tron.
Of course, they're sponsoring. Obviously, Tron is sponsoring.
Yeah, Tron sponsors everything. primarily just the president personally and privately through his meme coin. And then here we go. Gold sponsors, Binance US, some shit no one's ever heard of. And then down here, as we just keep going, we have Certic. Okay, interesting.
BitDeer. I've heard of BitDeer.
And it's just like, dude, what is this?
It's the best of the best, Alex.
What are we doing? Oh, another Asian exchange. Okay. Shut up.
Alex, I got to tell you, I honestly think this is just a reflection that maybe we travel in different circles. Like, I think these are the people who say digital assets, the people who would say like blockchain-based distributed ledger. You know what I mean? I don't think they're hanging out at the pizza party.
This is the part that I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
Is the fact that Tron is the diamond sponsor, and then the top 2 gold sponsors are Binance and Binance US. Binance US, which notably you can't use in the United States anymore. Okay. And then Big Daddy Binance, the recently pardoned after again contributing money and buying their way to freedom, and then Justin Sun, who just gets to yet again manipulate his way to the top of the charts. Whatever.
Maintaining relevancy.
What the hell is this?
You're a total grifter.
Anytime that Alex is like ready to give some kind of roast, I'm almost always here for it, because whether I like it or not, or whether other people like it or not, you make solid points. You really do. So like, I appreciate that you're kind of like bringing it up. I think that it is a little weird. Some of these sponsors, I'm kind of like, this is strange, but also, it's difficult to get sponsors for some stuff like this. And a lot of companies in the space, maybe they're not, maybe they maybe they don't have the capital to be allocating towards some of these events. Like, we had kind of a mini conversation about this when ETH Denver was happening, right? Because everyone was like, who are like some of these booths, whatever. And like, as upset as some people actually were about the ETH Denver turnout, at the end of the day, it's who has the capital to buy the box, to show up to the event and to do the thing. And in kind of the economy that we're in right now, especially when for the last 6 months, Bitcoin price has basically been dipping and the rest of the market typically follows what Bitcoin is doing, I'm not at all surprised that it kind of looks like a mixed bag in both instances. I don't read too much into it from that perspective. But like, you make a fair point. Like, you can't even use Binance US in the US. There are Asian exchanges all over the place. And like OKX, I think even recently as like 2 years ago, they actually got in some hot water for some of their, AML and BSA non-compliance concerns. And then they went on this like compliance hiring sprint, and they hired like tons of compliance people. But like, it's not like the creme de la creme, right? Like, it's not the Gemini, the Kraken, the Coinbase.
You're not even seeing the names that I would expect to see there. Like, I would expect with certain organizations, reaching out to the Trump administration stuff, I'd expect Coinbase to be there. I'd expect Ripple to potentially be there. There's some the Solana Foundation I'd expect to be there as well. Like, these are the names that are credible, that have also been courting the Trump administration more, with far more dollars than anyone else, like way more dollars, particularly with their lobbyist army as well. And
you know where they all are?
Where?
They're all in New York, because the Digital Asset Summit is coming up here, not this week, next week or end of the month. Here's where they all are. So of course Binance is there too, but this one feels like a lot more. First of all, it's like every major TradFi institution in the United States, but also there's Coinbase, there's Circle, there's the Ethereum Foundation, there's Fidelity, Goldman, Google. Franklin Templeton,
there it is.
Google, Jane Street, JP Morgan, the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, Morgan Stanley, Paradigm, PayPal.
Robinhood, Stripe,
there's Solana, there's VanEck, there's Visa, and this is not even the full list. Like, it's insane how many people are gonna. I mean, there you go. Right. IDEN, Button, Optimism, Uniswap.
Can we take a
Stellar.
screenshot of this, Tori? I'd like all these companies to sponsor the show.
It's
yeah, right.
There's Ripple. Ripple's in New York, not in DC. You know what? To me, if I was to like extrapolate a hot take from the lineup in the DC week right now compared to this, so first of all, I would say timing issue deserves to be flagged. Just like with ETH Denver this year, it was like a week after Hong Kong consensus and like a
Chinese
couple weeks before
Yeah.
the next. Exactly. Yeah. Not to mention, yet again, it's worth pointing out that we found out that what was the statistic? It was staggering. Like 4 out of 5 visa applications for visitation during Denver were rejected. Go figure. So, you know, coming into a hostile landscape right now. But then here they all are. So the DC thing to me feels like, the couldn't get a spot in New York, still wanted to do something, and here we feel like maybe it's going to be less polluted. You know, with noise potentially. If I'm trying to like come up with some reason as to why we're seeing that particular lineup, but I don't know, man.
Question: Did you see Tron on that New York list? Because I didn't.
Nope.
No, I didn't either. I was again. Tron. The inside joke is that Tron sponsors every crypto, everyone, indiscriminately.
Okay, but they don't just sponsor everything; they buy like an entire floor. And like in a bear market conference, when everyone is giving out like a sticker, Tron is like, "Here's a $300 backpack with our name on it." It's insane.
Yeah. I think the timing piece is definitely like something that you can look at, and in a bear markets too, companies they're picking and choosing which events are most important. And like in DC, everything's locked up right now, especially as it relates to Clarity. So it's kind of like low brow in that sense. Like if Clarity was a little bit more hype, if it had a markdown that was associated with it, if they actually hit that deadline that Trump gave them, I think the outcome would have been a little bit different. And so I think now they're all gathering in New York, which is like, let's be honest, where Wall Street really is. And then they're saying, okay, let's have the conversation over here. Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean, headquarters,
like, it strikes me as like kiddie pool, adult pool.
Yeah.
The kids table, the actual table at Thanksgiving. You know, that's what it feels like.
That's not to downplay anything. Yeah, that's not to downplay anything that they are doing in DC right now, because I have seen some really good conversations and really good speeches come out from some of the folks that are doing stuff over there. This is just like, you know, purely from like looking at the sponsorship perspective. Again, not trying to downplay anything that they're doing in DC. I think that the companies are just making more strategic decisions about the allocation of their resources and the greatest ROI on that allocation, right? And right now, DC just doesn't, it's not giving the ROI that was really promised when the Trump administration like appeared in Nashville and got all the Bitcoin guys all hyped up. So
remember that
for better or worse.
I do. I was there for that.
Oh God.
And then Trump demanded that everyone in the audience tell him thank you, and that was probably the first warning.
That sounds like Trump.
Yeah. He was like, all of you should say thank you. And then he just was like quiet. He's like, no, say thank you to me. And everyone's like, what? And then there was just like a few quiet, like, thank you. And then like a few really hardcore supporters yelling it. But everyone in the audience just got like real quiet. Like, what? Just,
like, is he really
just make us rich.
I want to highlight a comment from friend of the show, Jeff Rascal, asking about DAS. Isn't that the show I checked out that starts out at $1,200 to get into at the Javits? Is it Javits? Sorry, New York Center. Possibly, but my friends.
Oh yeah.
If you don't want to spend $1,200, then where you need to go is their conference website has a link to side events, and it brings you to this Luma page that gives you all of the side events that are on DAS NYC's 2026 official event calendar. Okay, most of these events will be free. Food and drink probably will be there. It'll be great conversation. And they've got all kinds of stuff. You can subscribe to this calendar. There will be other events on the website Luma, lu.ma or luma.com that I shared. And it's arranged by date in chronological order. So these events, even though the conference is March 24th through 26th, these events start Monday, March 23rd, and it's all kinds of stuff. It'll usually tell you who's sponsoring. Merkel's hosting this one. There's the tokenization clinic. And what I would do is just kind of scroll down and look for names I'd recognize. Plume, Apollo. A lot of these companies will have offices. They might host these meetups at their offices. Just spend 20 minutes after dinner, or, you know, when you put the dogs to bed kind of thing, checking out what fits your schedule. If you're around New York, you're in New York, this is a great day trip for you. You guys have other thoughts or tips? I just had to turn you on the Luma Alpha. That is the move.
I'll tell you right now,
don't spend $1.
Unless you are specifically like going and working, or you can get the tickets covered, it's almost never worth it to spend that much money on a conference.
No, I don't know.
They are getting more and more expensive. I mean, Consensus itself coming up in Miami, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get the most basic entrance pass. If you want to go, I mean, all of them, they're ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I love about ETH Denver, like for better or for worse.
Yep.
Regardless of how people perceive the event when it's actually happening, or that they do the autopsy on the event if they hate it, it's free. You can go there, you can talk to people, you can have a good time and connect. Like we had, when I met you guys over at Meow Wolf, we were actually in a pizza room when I found you guys when we were over there, and it was just good times. You know, just good times and good vibes. And then the people you wanted to talk to were actually available for you to talk to them. At these larger conferences like DAS, where you're paying thousands of dollars to even enter, those people don't have time to talk to like regular attendees, right? So I'm all for the free conferences if they can be swinged, but these are kind of like the more highbrow events, right? Like you can kind of look at the price tag of the conference and say, is this highbrow or lowbrow? If it's over, you know, like $600, it's probably a conference that has better ROI for the actual companies than it does for the retail investor, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yep.
Alex, I heard you gearing up, but I know that Will, you've got a stop coming up because you've got some work to do, and I know you had a couple of things you wanted to cover. I know we've got maybe a little macro indicators. I hear there's something in the astral chart, and maybe you'll take a little fun time for the community.
Yeah.
What's the moon doing, Will? Is the moon going to make my Bitcoin go to the moon, in fact?
No, the moon actually says Bitcoin is going to go down, which it currently is right now. It's totally the moon and not the horrific inflation data that was just released a few minutes ago.
Oh, no.
So the new moon, though, says that 71% of the time within 3 days, okay, let me say that again. 71% of the time within 3 days of a new moon, Bitcoin's price will go down.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
That's like 50% of the time it works every time.
Weird. It's like 50% of the time it works, 72% of the time, whatever the saying was. And so that
60% of the time it works 100% of the time.
It works.
Yeah.
That's right. Is that Sex Panther?
Is that gasoline?
Is that gasoline? It smells like gasoline. So yeah, but we got terrible inflation data today for PPI inflation. PPI inflation, once again, is the measurement of the cost of goods between businesses. So think a retailer buying from a manufacturer, or a manufacturer buying from, you know, raw materials from somebody. Okay. And the past two PPI inflation reports have been bad. They've been misses. And this was no exception. So regular PPI month over month and year over year missed, and core PPI, which is the measurement of the cost of goods, excluding oil, energy, food, right? So we know oil's been going up. So we're like, oh, okay, well, core PPI should be fine if we're going to exclude those, right? That was also a miss for month over month and year over year. So regular PPI inflation came in at 0.7%. It was expected to be at 0.3%. And the previous month was at 0.5%. So again, the month was 0.7. It's bad. Core PPI was at 0.5%. It was expected to be at 0.3%. So another miss there. However, slight little nice caveat. The previous month was 0.8. So it did come down from the previous month, but not as much as people were expecting or hoping. That's not good. That means that because we've had 3 PPI reports in a row be pretty bad, that inflation will be expected in about 6 months or so to percolate into CPI inflation. And so that's not great. And that means that the odds of the Fed maybe not being able to cut rates at all this entire year start to increase.
Well, I am shocked.
Yeah. Color Alex shocked.
Surprised. Alex is stunned at this information.
Misrepresentation of the facts.
I always love kind of doing like the market analysis and checking these like statistics and everything. But when they're doing even CPI, they kind of change how these things are defined over time. They put different things in that little basket that don't necessarily apply to regular people. And so when I look at this stuff, I almost am just like, you know what I mean? I almost like don't even care, because you're telling me, oh, we're keeping inflation at 2% or something like that. But if you actually look at it on a year over year basis, it trends up well beyond 2%. The difference between like the real and nominal values are staggering. And like nobody really talks about that too much. They just kind of go like, oh, CPI inflation at 2%.
Because that number is terrifying.
Yeah. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I just mean to say that, like, I mean, and Will could probably speak even better on this than I can, because I almost don't even watch these numbers anymore, because I just don't even trust. I don't trust how they're putting it together. If you or I go to Walmart and we buy our groceries, what is it, like 80% of the country buys their groceries at Walmart? In your like Walmart for the bucket of goods that is used to calculate the consumer price index, are any of those things on your list when you go to Walmart? No, almost none of them. There might be like 2 or 3 that you would get. But otherwise it's completely disjointed, like everything else in the financial system more generally. And so I kind of look at these numbers and I'm like, shocker, they're lying to me and the numbers suck. And, Trump even said kind of at the beginning of his administration that really the plan is just like to outspend inflation, that, we're just going to kind of burn the market, essentially. That is the plan. And so these are the numbers that you would expect based on that strategy, right? Or even worse over time. So I'm not like Alex, color me surprised, right? Like I'm shocked by this information. Not at all. This is like standard Ponzi scheme behavior. And as far as I can tell, they're just trying to make sure that the public isn't panicking too hard to prevent like deposit flight. But at this point, regular people don't even have $500 in their bank account usually. So even if there was deposit flight, like what would that mean to a bank? Effectively nothing at this point. They're just too big and everything's fractionalized. So I'm just kind of like, I don't mean to be so dismissive. Like I think it's important to still track those numbers so that you can see the trends over time. But I'm also just like,
every day that goes by, more data that comes out of particularly the administration that's releasing the data now just means less and less to me. Like,
right.
You don't see any of the reports about how much purchasing power your dollar has lost in the past 12 months. Because it's like double. It's really, really bad. And we never include debasement of currency in the inflation conversation, but you have to stick those 2 percentages together. As more of it is, so inflation obviously is the measured rise in the cost of goods and stuff and whatever. And then debasement is the rate at which we debase or devalue our own currency by cramming more and more of it into circulation. And I forget the number off the top of my head, but a staggering percentage of the money, the US dollars in circulation, has come out in the last several years. And so it's really no surprise that this is just consistently getting awful. And yeah, what do you do when the only news that you can give anyone is terrible? Fudge it.
Right.
Fudge it a little bit so that you can make it look like a little more, it's, it's not great, but, it could be worse. And it's like, no, it is worse. We're just, like you said, we're just excising the most painful numbers from the equation so that we don't have to tell people about them and then hoping that no one does any reading. And if, God forbid, they do read something, nobody cares.
It's a crazy thing. I heard the other day somebody said everything seems, just talking about paying attention to these things and why might it matter to pay attention. I don't pay attention to it every day all the time because I find that I get overwhelmed by all the news we have available to us, all the tragedy in the world that is competing for our attention and our outrage, not because I don't care, but because many things are not particularly relevant to me. And what has helped me more than anything is understanding history. Kelly, her last name escapes me. She's an author. She said something about like those who think every current event is unprecedented are not familiar with history. And it's helpful sometimes to zoom out. You know, you could go back to the Roman Empire if you want to see a way, like they used to use silver coins. And over time they would meet in other metals and gradually debase their own currency. At one time they had inflated the price so much that people stopped using the currency entirely and just started bartering with each other, as sometimes people have done in times of great emergency. But it's precedented. And that's one of the reasons it's worrisome.
You know, speaking of currency debasement, my girlfriend and I have been watching Mad Men for the first time, actually. Neither of us had seen it. And we were like, oh, we should probably watch this. Like, everyone loves it. And it's funny. It's set in 1960, 1961. And there's this one scene in the first season where Don Draper gives his brother like $5,000. Like, he doesn't want him in his life. He's like, hey, man, just take this. I can help you this way. And like, get out of here, man. Like, I have my own life now. And he's like, gives him $5,000. And he's holding him. He's like, dude, this is $5,000. And I was like, market equivalent today. And it was like $55,000 like today. And I was just like, he's like, you can start a new life. And then there was other people being like, oh, he's like, oh no, what was it? But you want to buy that 2-bath, 2-bed apartment in Manhattan? It's an entire year's salary. And I was like, only 1 year's salary. I was like, wait, what? And then one of the secretaries is like, I make $35 a week and I'm doing pretty well for myself. And I was like, you're making $35. You can live off of $35. I was like, you know, it's just crazy. Currency debasement plus inflation. It's wild. It is wild.
Yeah. Even if you make $35 an hour now, right? Once income taxes, federal taxes, state taxes all come out of that, what do you walk away with? Like, say $26, something like that, right? An hour. And then you try to go to the grocery store. Try to go to the grocery store and see if you can buy 5 items for under $20. I don't think you can do it.
It's crazy.
This is where you guys are messing up. All you have to do, I'm going to channel the inner gurus that I've. All you have to do is visualize making $1 billion. And then through the power of your mind, you will manifest $1 billion. And as soon as you hit that $1 billion mark, you never have to pay taxes ever again. That's the ultimate cheat code. So I don't know what we're all doing not being billionaires, but that's your fault.
Well, what kills me about that too is like, I understand doing the mindset shift stuff. But if your education is totally disjointed from the reality of the situation, no matter how much you change your mindset, the reality of the situation doesn't change, right? And so like, even if you look at just supply of our current monetary system and of our monies, right? Almost every deflationary metric that we can measure, we cannot use. So for example, broad money destruction, not allowed. The Fed does not allow it. You cannot do it, right? If I go and burn like $100 bill, theoretically, I could get in trouble for that, right? Like, you can't deface the currency. So like, the only real deflationary measure the only real deflationary measures that we actually have, and this sounds like this is like kind of tinfoil hat, but the only real one that we have any control over is life expectancy, right? So if and when people pass, that in and of itself is a deflationary metric. If you add that with the advent of robotics, because now we even have, robotic for defense teams so that we don't really have to use militaries anymore. They can hold weapons and fire at targets and do all of that kind of thing. So if we use those machines to replace the human labor that is lost through that deflationary regime over time, especially if you look at birthing rates and things like that, once those things start to come down, that is the only deflationary metric that's available. And I saw this guy, I forget what his name is now. I wish that I could cite him, but he had said something like, do you have any idea how much abuse a species has to undergo before that species will opt out of having children? Wow. It's a lot, like a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so when we're kind of looking at this, you have to think in terms not of like, oh, I'm just going to like change my mindset and then like everything's going to be rainbows and unicorns. It's really about acknowledging the harsh reality of the situation and like taking the truth that you uncover when you do that. If you don't have the stones to look at that truth and see it for what it actually is, or if you're even trying to, you know, kind of like obfuscate yourself in some way because, you know, you're in your 50s and 60s and, you know, you voted for some things that may have allowed things like this to happen. You have to face it head on. If you don't face the truth head on, you will not be able to your way out of this. And there is no escape hatch. So I was actually doing like a constitutional law kind of thought experiment with myself last night in preparation for this podcast. And a lot of people say things like code is speech, right? But when I was at ETH Denver, I met an attorney, and the attorney was talking about how we measure privacy. And so like even Google doesn't know how to measure privacy, right? It's like one to like one person. But like, how do you measure privacy? Like, how much money would you pay for every text message you've ever written to not be released to the public? Like, right? Like, how do you measure privacy exactly? Like, we don't know, but it's better to think of privacy as property. And according to the Tornado Cash, you know, decision that just came out with the SEC in like 2025, crypto is also like not property. So if crypto is not property and privacy is property, then how do we kind of square this circle about how it is that we interact with these systems? So what I think we need to move in the conversation is not that crypto is speech, right? Like that's kind of a given at this point. Most everybody recognizes that. What crypto is actually the underlying technology, right? It's the decentralized ledger. That's what it is. And what is a decentralized ledger other than a press, a printing press, right? Because everything is public. It doesn't matter if the news is good or bad, the news being a good or bad transaction. Once it is, you know, published, it is immutable. There's nothing that you can do to change that. And if we can think about it in a way where DLT is actually press as opposed to crypto is speech, you open up this beautiful kind of door that actually gives people a way out from this like oppressive economic regime that we call the fiat system now. Because the government cannot say that it has a compelling interest to regulate decentralized ledgers with one hand, and then on the other hand not adhere to the Constitution's commerce clauses. Like if it's your job to regulate coinage as a government and you have systemically, historically, and proven that you only have moral hazard and you have no interest in actually regulating and maintaining the store of value of the money, then you can't have it both ways. You can't choke it and then try to water the plant at the same time, right? That would be like burning down a grocery store and then, you know, arresting citizens who start growing vegetables in their backyard. Mm-hmm. You cannot do it.
No. Well said.
Sorry, that was kind of like a long diatribe.
No, it was beautiful. I'm giving you a.
There's a lot of
Alex. I have to pause because I do have to get going.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. So I sorry to interrupt your thought there, and I have to run. So I'll catch everybody tonight for After Dark at 8:00 Eastern Standard Time to chat a little bit more about the market. And Caulene, it's great to chat with you here again and see you since ETH Denver. The one thing that I'll put on everybody's radar screen right now too is with currency debasement, it being the bear market, it is a great time to be airdrop farming, and it's a great time to be staking. So I did want to say that I'm actually having a lot of fun airdrop farming on Abstract, which is the layer 2 on Ethereum. And like they've had it open for you to earn XP for a really long time, but they recently changed how their XP is rewarded. Oh, my light went out. This is good timing. They recently changed how their XP is rewarded from people just holding stuff to people more so using and playing games on Abstract. And I love Web3 more than like Web3 gaming than like any other use case. And I'm actually going to steal the screen share here.
Oh, steal it. Go for it.
If my internet will play nicely. Here we go. Because it started slowing down recently. So on Abstract, you have these games here that I'm sharing on the screen. And there are some that are rewarding more XP than others. Right now, Maze of Gains, genuinely, I'm having a lot of fun playing. It's a dungeon crawler. And you do have to port some Ethereum over here. It costs like a tiny bit of money, usually just a few dollars to get a key to like play. Actually, it's $1. So it's like putting in 4 quarters into an arcade slot machine, you know, I don't know, the restaurant or bar or whatever, or barcade. Tolan Universe is also really fun game. Those are my 2 favorites. And Tolan Universe is like it's a top-down arcade style, like wave survival game. And it's like a little bit RPG in the sense. And then there's Moody Madness that I've been having fun with, which is a racing game. And this is actually probably the cheapest one to get started because you buy like a season's pass for like 0.03 or 0.02 Ethereum. And then you can race against a bunch of other people and things like that. And there's some other stuff. But you can earn XP playing some games. And this is the most that I have played Web3 gaming ever. And I'm like actually genuinely having a good time. And the Abstract team owned by Igloo Company and Pudgy Penguins, they're known for being pretty generous with airdrops. So if you're looking to have some fun and you're looking to do some airdrop farming for, you know, an unspecified amount of money in the future, who knows what it's going to be. Could be not a lot, could be some, but you know, it's a way to be productive and have fun in a bear market. So I wanted to share it with everyone.
He's your friend and he's mine, Mr. William Watson. Thanks, brother.
See you, everybody. See you, Caulene.
See you tonight.
Hi, Will.
And if you're not there already, the place you need to go to connect with Will, to connect with us, talking about everything the show offers, that place is community.rumshq.com. And in fact, right now in the community, we have got the extended edition of Will's Silly Chart Art Contest. Now through March 30th, you can post your favorite technical analysis, serious or silly, like this, like Twin Tower Bitcoin with the Binance plane. There's somebody with a Rise Up Morning Show parachute just as the price craters into the ground, and somebody who posts a chart that Will determines to be the silliest, smartest, funniest, or best will win $100 of his money. So who doesn't want to win Will's money? I think that would be...
take Will's money.
Who doesn't want to take Will's money? We're giving it all away on the show, and the place you can do it is community.rumshq.com. Also, by way of transition, speaking of airdrops, I wanted to let everybody on the show know that the CAT token is live. We've talked about Katana because a lot of people got to farm their first airdrop by staking Polygon tokens or by participating in their pre-seeding last year when we talked about it. It is launched on Gate.io, BitGet, OKX, Binance, and now you can get the contract address and swap it on decentralized exchanges directly. You should head over to x.com/Katana with a K. Check out their pinned tweet for the contract addresses. Do not click links from tweets. They're all over the internet right now. And anytime there's an actual legitimate airdrop, people who want to take your money will pretend to be Katana with like 2 extra A's or something like that. And they'll post a bad link to just suck your wallet dry. The other place you might care to go is app.katana.network, where you can see your little dashboard of assets. And for people who've been here before, you'll notice they have changed the display of the website. If you're in podcast land and you want to see this stuff, then you can head over to YouTube, take a look at the dashboard, and come back with your questions to community.rumshq.com. If you have a hard time withdrawing your assets, swapping your tokens. We know a lot of different people participated, so we want you to stay safe out there. Now, I teased it earlier, but we didn't get to talk really about the Clarity Act. And particularly, Alex, you shared a story about how the SEC and the CFTC have kind of taken matters, or at least words, into their own mouths. With the statement they released yesterday, I feel like that might be something we're talking about. I don't know. It saved me from myself before I say something that gets us canceled.
No, you're doing great. Keep going.
Oh, and if you've got a crypto question, a suggestion, a good word of wisdom, or I don't know, you maybe want to audition for my job, check yourself, then leave it in the comments before we got to ride our dogs and ponies into the sunset, because it's about that time. So save me from myself, and we'll do some news and final thoughts.
I love that horse animation. That was crazy.
Thank you. We've got real dogs and real ponies on our fake radio show. Anytime you want to hear them. We've also got this one that I'll play while I buy Alex some time for when we want to ride our cats and cows into the sunrise.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the footnote on this is that the SEC and the CFTC have issued a joint interpretation. It's kind of more just like a statement that they're going to cooperate with each other, which, if I'm being cynical, is a diabolical thing to make an entire press release that we are going to coordinate enforcement efforts with another enforcement agency so that we don't keep ruining everyone's everything. This is, if I'm being pessimistic and cynical, again, this is a statement that effectively says, hey, we're going to do our jobs, or try to. And then effectively what it does is punt responsibility back to Congress. So you could look at this as potentially a pressure application to Congress to figure their shit out. It's joined by potentially some sort of compromise, according to Senator Tim Scott, who's the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, who states that some sort of compromise may be about to be reached with stablecoin yield. Spoiler alert, it's not great. And then this thing is pretty much just I wanted to bring this up for two reasons. One, it is an interesting read. It is worth looking at. Technically, this could be considered good news. I think they should have said this about 5 years ago. But this memo is not a law. And I have already this morning seen 3 different TikTok videos about this release, framing it as official, policy, legal. It's none of those things. This is not a policy. This is not official. This is not legally binding. There is no precedent for this to be applied through the judicial. This has basically nothing to do with anything. It's effectively an internal press release memo for staff guidance. But it is good to sort of see into the headspace of how these agencies are now trying to get it together. So take it with a grain of salt. It's nice to see something like this, but it really doesn't mean that much. It's kind of like that we framed it on trust issues last night. This is similar to an executive order in that it doesn't actually really mean anything. And what it's meant to do is influence the formation of legislation through Congress. An executive order is issued by a president as a proclamation. It's kind of like a guidance. It really can only legally be applied or mean anything inside the executive. And in this particular administration, that's the only branch that matters anymore. So in that sense, it means a little bit more. But in general, what Congress then has to do is pick that up and do something with it. And if they don't, then it just sort of sits there and goes away until the next president gets to make a name for himself on day one by rescinding all of the previous executive orders and waste everybody's time. So this is a good one to keep in mind. There's a couple things that are being spread about this that, again, like I said, just sort of you should be aware of. So there's a statement in here that several things are commodities and not securities. Just again, for the record, none of that is legally binding. None of that is legal precedent that could come up in court. And effectively, none of it really matters, except to say that these SECs and CFTCs will probably not be going after those groups or projects or assets or whatever's. So in that sense, as it stands right now, that could be construed easily as good news. But just like an executive order, if a new SEC chair came in, they could rescind this with one email and it would all be completely meaningless. So it's incredibly fragile. And the whole point of this should be to influence then Clarity. And this is written the way that the original Clarity Act was supposed to be written. So anyway, that's pretty much the long and short of this particular release.
So to give you kind of like an even-handed interpretation, since cynicism is kind of Alex's resting face in this area,
Huzzah.
Huzzah, which is not a bad thing, right? Like we should be looking and we should be asking questions and we should be doing all of those things. From my perspective, especially in my like capacity doing Stand With Crypto, and when I was in college, my bachelor's degree is actually in political science, and so I kind of have a different approach into how I interpret these things. So Alex is 100% correct. Like the CFTC and the SEC, these guidelines that they're posting in this announcement, they are not legally binding at all. But it is kind of part and parcel of the APA in the sense that when you're doing rulemaking things in government, essentially, the idea is you put out some kind of clarifying statement about the thing. And I think that's what the SEC and the CFTC are trying to do in this case, because it's taken about 4 years for Heather Pierce's initial announcement of how she believes crypto should move forward. She did a 2020 speech and she introduced this idea of like safe harbor, right? And the idea of safe harbor is to give crypto projects that find themselves in these like weird catch-22s, because obviously different arms of the government change at different speeds. And as that happens, it creates real friction for the innovation of actual projects, right? And so they find themselves in this catch-22. But safe harbor is basically like, hey, you get like a 4-year grace period. You tell us X amount of things about your company. You show us your roadmap. We assume in good faith that you are going to do these things to try to get your blockchain to become, quote, mature. Once the blockchain is considered mature, then it could be considered a digital commodity like Bitcoin, like Ethereum. Until that maturity metric is met, you're basically under some type of SEC scrutiny in most cases. And so I think that's why the SEC and the CFTC are trying to have some unifying language here, because they're recognizing that it is kind of a catch-22, but government is slow. So like what we know 5 years ago, they're just now beginning to understand. And so I think that we have to keep that in mind when we're talking about regulation. And how this impacts Clarity is it's basically telling lawmakers that the SEC and the CFTC are kind of unified on this new approach, and they're publicizing it so that when you walk into the room, in the banking committee, for example, you have some kind of understanding of how you think the SEC and the CFTC are going to do or are going to adjudicate things moving forward. Obviously, if we get new people in those positions, like you said, Alex, it could just all go away. It is still very fragile. But the only point of Clarity is to not make crypto worse. And I think that's something that we miss sometimes when we're talking about it. We kind of miss the forest for the trees, and we're like, it's not everything we want. It's not like these broad authorizations that allows DeFi to do a lot of things. But recently they have done like a full overview of DeFi, and it seems that they do have a good understanding of how it works, and they want to protect kind of these non-custodial protocols, similar to things like Aave, despite the fact of Aave's like issues over the last week or so.
I've had a rough time.
But the idea being that like, hey, let's just try to not do this regulatory by enforcement situation. And then Clarity then has, a couple of positives. One, it doesn't make crypto worse. There are still inroads for DeFi in the future that will allow us to do things, which is what this kind of announcement is showing. You have the legal right to self-custody. The FTX is going to be prevented in the future because consumer funds are going to be separate from, institutional capital. It's anti-CBDC. And then everyone's been wanting the liquidity from institutions forever. And the only way that we can do that is, of course, to get institutional adoption through allowing some of these things to happen. That is the only point of clarity. Just don't make things worse. But as you pointed, talking about taxes with your mom a couple of weeks ago, for DeFi users, that can become a problem, right?
Sure. I would even leave the tax thing out of the conversation as it stands right now and just look at the bill on its face, because I agree with you. And actually, I personally have some issue with the whole like anti-regulation by enforcement stance. Not to say that it's been done well, but part of the way that this system is supposed to work, if it in fact were to work properly. So let's take a quick trip to utopia for a second.
Love it.
If the legislative passes a law, a framework, and puts it out there, people start to do stuff, and then the judicial, in conjunction with the executive, is supposed to determine whether or not these are correct interpretations of that law, and then enforce what they have interpreted the law to be. And if there's disagreement, that is quite literally what the judicial is for. Executive interprets and enforces the law, and then the judicial hears the disagreement between the one being enforced against and the one doing the enforcing. So if we're not going to release something that is completely full and totally comprehensive, which would be impossible to do and is never the case, and at least you have to do what you just said, Caulene, which is not create a quagmire wherein it's impossible to do the experimenting. And that is my singular and solitary beef with the Clarity Act as it stands right now. I believe that it does make it worse by specifically cutting in half the DeFi experience for a retail user, the casual user, someone who just wants to interact with the protocol that is now on paper being protected, by leaving out the fact that you need some way to interact with that protocol. And if you have zero protections, and in fact, things that could hinder the ability of those front ends to connect people to the protocol that you are protecting, the protection of the protocol is almost meaningless. It's great for like a couple dozen developers and engineers who created a thing, but their creation doesn't mean shit if users and retail have no safe way to access the protocol that they built. And the reason that you have geofencing around the United States for every single major DeFi protocol is because that protection still doesn't exist, and it's nowhere on anyone's radar with a single piece of legislation that is either being debated, being talked about. It's nary a twinkle in a senator's eye to protect the front end. And I've been screaming about that for ages now, but that's my problem, is that it does make it worse. Because if I can't use Aave, because now all of a sudden their front end requires my social security number and all this other crap that they can't enforce and do, they would have to completely rework the entire thing. And they're not the only ones. You know, take your pick. Then all we're going to do is see more and more geofencing against US citizens popping up for all of these protocols.
Yeah. So actually congress.gov, there's a CRS product out from the Library of Congress, and it actually goes into like an overview of all things DeFi, essentially, right? Building blocks, smart contracts, oracles, regulated versus permissionless, etc. And so they are recognizing that there's kind of like a regulatory arbitrage that is likely to occur in DeFi if you find yourself in a situation where, you know, you want to be able to use some kind of product like Aave, for example, not explicitly, but you want to be able to use this product, but for some reason you can't. So whether that's because it's geofenced or whether that's because, it's, you know, otherwise not allowed, etc. Like users are just going to go for the regulatory arbitrage, and so are the projects, right? Because ultimately, no matter what they say about DeFi, DeFi is already here, and there is no way for you to effectively get rid of all of it, right? And the moment that we try to say, okay, hey, we're not going to do this DeFi project, someone else will spin it up, and it'll be on a GitHub somewhere.
Different users.
Right. Exactly. And then people turn on their VPN and then they go do it. Right. And so I think that the regulators are starting to like really recognize this at a more like systemic level. And they're just trying to figure out how to delineate those regulatory requirements, right? Because each of the DeFi apps, like the L2s that are on Ethereum, for example, they might have functions that are entirely different. So like, how do you define like the L2 money transmitter versus, you know, somebody who's just like posting transactions to the Ethereum L1 for security or something? Like, it's very difficult, right? So I think that they're getting there.
I mean, I would defer to you because I believe that you probably have more specific insight into that than I do from my position. Mm-hmm. However, I guess the problem that I have with it is that the protection that they could afford a DeFi protocol, if that was actually the goal, just seems to completely, it seems to purposely leave this whole front end thing out when, like, I could in 2 sentences draft a clause that would protect it and not afford anyone the right to do anything insane or malicious. Like, if you were to even just draw one little line and say, I'm just literally going to make this up, you know, some sort of protection afforded to non-custodial front-end applications to interact with protected protocol code or something like that, then all of a sudden you have this previously codified code protection, and then you recognize that an audited require a specific panel of audits, make it have to submit for some sort of review to prove that it's non-custodial, you know, draw specific rules about like how or what kinds of transactions can be approved at the protocol level through the front end that a US citizen could interact with. Like, that's the thing that kills me, is that like you could even get a little heinous with this and make it like really difficult for, you know, anyone but only like the big ones to be able to afford the resources to be able to retool a front end to comply with whatever this is. The problem is that right now there is no framework for them to even shoot for compliance with. And that's a massive, it's not just an oversight. It's like, it's specifically swinging a baseball bat right into their kneecap with like no warning whatsoever. And that is a problem. And I don't think that every bill has to do everything. I do believe that you do have to let things, or supposedly go through the judicial process and establish some sort of legal precedent. If we don't have a single court case that's ever been litigated about any of this kind of stuff, then yeah, you don't have precedent to base, you know, a new policy on or something like that. The bill doesn't have to do everything. But in that case, just leave out the requirement that they are placing on front end so that they don't make it impossible to do anything and then let the court cases come out. So I guess that's probably the summary total of my whole and full beef there.
Yeah. And like, it's not like a bad take. You know, there are a lot of people who think that, and like even I think that sometimes. But like I mentioned before, like the only point is to not make crypto worse. But crypto does not mean DeFi. It means the fullness of the crypto industry, right? And with all of the versatile projects that are inside of it, whether they're DeFi or something else, we wouldn't be able to, like you were saying, we wouldn't be able to feasibly create a bill that does everything. There's just no way. And so I think what we're seeing is like a regulatory prioritization of the things that have the most liquidity and that most easily map onto existing regulatory frameworks like ASL and BSA, AML, BSA, and like those banking frameworks. And so that's why everyone's talking about like stable coins, and everyone's talking about yield, and everyone's talking about those things because they're the most like the existing banking rails that we have today in TradFi. The DeFi stuff is way more complex. And so regulators, I think, need a heck of a lot more education to be able to effectively draft bills that make sense. Otherwise, they won't just be hitting somebody in the knee with a baseball bat, they'll be cutting their legs off. You know what I mean? So I hear what you're saying, but I also kind of just have this recognition that like the government is slow and it's so frustrating and it's so annoying, but like it's also part and parcel of the process. So I think DeFi I think it's being elevated now, given this like large overview that Congress.gov is putting out and all the CRS reports. They're talking about DEXs, they're talking about sexes being CEX,
right?
And yeah, and you know they are looking at making sure that non-custodial protocols have an opportunity to thrive. But there are requirements for that. Like if you're a non-custodial protocol, what exactly does that mean? How do we define that? What do your tokenomics look like? How does your voting behavior happen? And each of these individual things have to be adjudicated before they can be written into law, lest we, again, cut off our own legs, right? So,
Sure.
but I hear you, because in the meantime, the DeFi user in retail is going to be like, what the F? This doesn't help me at all. But if you're a savvy DeFi user, the passage or non-passage of clarity doesn't matter to you anyway. Right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you're going to do what you're going to do.
Minority. You're talking about
right.
like
Exactly.
An almost non-existent percentage of the populace. So it doesn't matter. Government is supposed to protect the nuance and the forgotten. Mm-hmm. That's literally the whole point. And if what you're doing here is just, creating a framework wherein we can regulate the small stuff out of existence and just pave the way for the biggest, richest shit to exist, then fantastic, because we've built the framework for those things to get even more powerful by passing Genius the way that it is. And now Clarity just makes it harder for the average person in this country to do anything except use one of those ultra highbrow corporate type of crypto platforms. So if that's the point, then, bang up job. And I worry that the framework that's being like negotiated here is just this, like, if I'm being optimistic for a second, it's like this, okay, so take a memo from the SEC and one from the CFTC and, this little press release here. Effectively, the only thing they've done, thus far is issue letters of no action and stop sending Wells notices to everybody and their grandmother. Fantastic. Great first step. But I worry that the fragility of that system being built is just going to crumble when they throw in the towel on figuring out how to actually do this properly. And to your point, government is incredibly slow. That's part of my worry, is that they're gonna continue to ram this thing through, because even though compared to Genius, Clarity has taken forever, it's still very fast in the grand scheme of things, especially for something that has no precedent to rest on, barely a framework to speak of, and was all but unmentioned until the last couple of years. Like, this is an incredibly fast turnaround if it does pass this year. So in that sense, it's like, okay, pass this thing that kind of sucks, but like, whatever, I guess it's there. And then just hope that the SEC keeps with its, declaration of no action against all these other things and just sort of let them skate by. And I just don't trust that framework at all. And I've never seen evidence in the United States that once a bad law is put in place, it's going to get fixed in a year or two. It's going to sit there and it's going to fester for decades while all the people who are not rich enough to fight for their rights that they should be allowed to have just get stuck and drowned in court by the ones who can afford to conquer them.
Yeah, that's part of the reason that I kind of mentioned the constitutional stuff earlier, because in crypto, we will always say that like code is speech, right? But the government has a compelling interest, like I was saying before, to make sure that not just the speech, but the conduct as a result of that speech is what they have in what's called an intermediate interest in, or they apply intermediate scrutiny to adjudicate that compelling interest. So like if I trade money, that's not just speech, right? It is the conduct that happens downstream from that trade. So if I'm some guy in the middle of Indiana or something, and I'm like buying OnlyFans, right? Like you're purchasing it with your money, but the downstream effect of the conduct, or like people who do money laundering, for example, that's the conduct. And DeFi does have a lot of opportunity for things like money laundering and stuff like that. So, but I don't think that the government really has a leg to stand on when we consider those factors in every case, because like I was saying before, the decentralized ledger is essentially a printing press. Even the Genesis block of Bitcoin, what was printed there? A news article, right? A news article about the banks. And so it is your data, and your data is your information. And that information is immutable, which makes it the ultimate arbiter of reality and truth. And you cannot retroactively, or preemptively oppress that speech whether it's good or bad speech. If somebody is trying to do money laundering, it is the government's responsibility to identify that individual and then prosecute that individual, right? You can't prosecute the protocol, which is why Tornado Cash won. That was a big deal. And I think that
Certainly.
a lot of people didn't really understand why it was a big deal, but it wasn't from the code as speech perspective, in my opinion. It's from the DLT as press perspective, because this is where we get the truth, right? And if it's press, then the government actually has to apply strict scrutiny to any regulatory regime that affects the expression of that press. And so I think there is an inroad from a constitutional law perspective, not to talk about code as speech, but to talk about DLT as press. I think that is the better regulatory pathway forward. And it'll help with the adjudication of some of these DeFi protocols. But I like the safe harbor idea, right? It gives these DeFi protocols an opportunity to kind of spin themselves up to prove their mettle, essentially, to get users. It allows for airdrops. An individual who makes a protocol can't be prosecuted just for making the protocol, right? Because the code is speech. That is now established court precedent. So I think that we're on the right path. But DeFi is definitely going to have some kind of restricted behavior that will cripple its innovation in the short term. But we're also such creative people that I don't think that even with all of that, crippling, that it would ultimately kill it, right? Because people will just move to zero knowledge proofs.
Well, no, people are just going to move their protocol to a different country. The thing that
they already do that.
And that's not going to change. It's going to get worse. The people that I know who are actively building stuff, they'll tell you any amount of money that they've spent trying to become compliant in the United States, including right now in the past 12 months, has been wasted and has hurt them nearly irreparably. So that's my worry, that what we're enshrining protections for are Coinbase and these other big Kraken, these other big exchanges. The reason that they seem to be more okay with it. I mean, even that CFTC, SEC little guidance deal, the four things that it highlights as being protected activities, not the offering of a security, are protocol level mining, protocol level staking, airdrops, and wrapping. And it's these are literally the four activities that centralized entities participate in. There's nothing in there about any of the other DeFi stuff, and they can't afford to retool the entire application to comply with stuff that they couldn't even if they wanted to. They're just going to leave.
Right.
So I get it. We're choosing our battles, and it's just really sad to me that yet again in America the corporate wins, and the independent stuff is just going to get punted offshore, and then we're going to forget about it, because let's be honest, we're not going to come back and revisit this in any kind of impactful way for a very long time. It's going to get stuck in the courts for the next 20 years. And that's why I'm upset about it, because with literally 5 sentences, you could fix that. And you could let it go to courts with some sort of potential resolution. There's no way to reinterpret this as being favorable or allowing to small indie DeFi projects to spin up and run an experiment. And they wouldn't waste their money on doing that. They're just going to go somewhere else. So
well, this is why I generally, love him or hate him. This is why I agree with Brian Armstrong. I'd rather have nothing then.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Completely. 100%.
If we're really going to go down this path, and it's going to be that the retail person does not have the capability to, employ their own economic survival in a regulatory environment where political speech is protected, and you've now captured my ability to ensure that my government is doing the right thing as far as, controlling the purse or, the Commerce Clause in the Constitution. If my government is to the point where they're not even properly adjudicating that, they are not protecting the store of value. It is the point of economic survival to be able to have some kind of peaceful exit from that system. And that is exactly what crypto and DeFi is. That's why it was built that way. That's why Satoshi posted that news article in the Genesis block because it is a political movement that is based on the publication of press. And honestly, at this point, if the bank's complaint is that whether it's the bank or whether it's the 31 members of Congress who wrote to Tim Scott and Elizabeth Warren on the 12th, the government has no compelling interest to continue to use AML and BSA as an excuse to not allow DeFi protocols to flourish, right? Because we have blockchain now. It is fully transparent. And we have blockchain analytics platforms like Chain Analysis who do geolocation on your IP addresses, for crying out loud, to figure out who you are and where you are and how you're on-ramping and off-ramping. And so you cannot say that you're going to preemptively, hamper the digital innovation of a DeFi project for the sake of AML and BSA when it's literally the most transparent system we've ever had. Like, you don't get to have both of those things. It is one or the other. And that's why I think it's important to start talking about, instead of code is speech, that DLT is press.
These are the conversations that matter the most. I didn't want to interrupt you going back and forth because this is so important, but I do want you to think about what your final thoughts are and invite you to come back again. And maybe this has got to be an episode of Trust Issues, because I've learned for sure a ton. The fact that we get to come in here, think critically, challenge each other, and figure it out together, that really matters. And we appreciate all of you for being a part of that. We're going to be back, if you enjoy this kind of thing, tonight for Rise Up After Dark. I'm going to save my fun about the Vanity Fair article mocking crypto for this evening. That should be an enjoyable time. We'll check in on our friends at Katana. And then one final episode of the morning show to round out the week tomorrow. We're here with Jared Blake. He is head of product over at Crack. And everybody knows that on the Rise Up morning show, we are in fact hooked on crack.
I am a big fan of it.
Caulene, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you also, I've got to say it, shout out to friend of the show and our official cold storage wallet. Talking about Arculus. If you don't have one yet, then consider Arculus for your cold storage solution. There are lots of great wallets out there, but we chose to partner with them because they make security simple. They make safety a breeze. And they're a legitimate company, not just some startup that a guy's working on in his basement. Though no shade to those people out there working on startups. We definitely need you. It's an awesome option for people who are intimidated, especially about cold storage. You can check them out at getarculus.com. And this is Arculus on all socials. And I just wanted to shout them out because they are always doing discounts and deals. They've got them on the TikTok shop. If you are military, you can get 25% off. And if you're not, then hey, you can use the code ARCURUMS10 to get 10% off your order wherever you are, whenever you listen. It's $99. So with your discounts, you're talking like $89. If you're a military person, you're talking like $80. It's great. And we appreciate them for all that they do. So I hope I bought you enough time, my friends. Have you got a final thought, good joke, question, suggestion, word of wisdom? Caulene, I'm coming to you first. And also, please do tell people one more time where they can find you.
Yes, that was actually going to be my final thought. So if you are interested in hosting an event for the Bitcoin Pizza Day on May 22nd, please reach out to me on X. We will find a city or a host near you, and you can either help them locally or build your own. And if you want to get involved with Stand With Crypto for advocacy, for education, for partnerships, if you just want to help grow the community and educate lawmakers and individuals on what this technology is, please reach out to me on X at Caulene Amagi and let me know, and I will connect you with the appropriate president for your state so that we can get you rolling. In the meantime, please make sure to go to standwithcrypto.org, create a profile for yourself, And that way you can kind of stay apprised as things like the Clarity Act move forward. We also have various resources that explain the Clarity Act, statements from other organizations that talk about the Clarity Act. So there's a lot of resources there for you to understand if you kind of want to adjudicate for yourself the conversation that Alex and I were just having. But thank you, Evan. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Will, even though you're not here right now, for giving me the time to come on. I love talking to you guys. If you want to do a trust issues, I am down. I feel like that would be a lot of fun.
I agree. Alex, have you got a final thought for us today? Will says,
hey there, normies.
Well said. Obviously, Caulene, thanks for taking so much time and spending extra time with us on top of the normal show runtime today. This was a lot of fun. I think trust issues would be a good one for sure. I will make my final thought just to point out something funny. So the first book that we did on the Trust Issues Book Club was The Mystery of Capital, and one of the mysteries is political awareness, which is just sort of this idea that politicians and government-based leaders tend to ignore people that they think can't meaningfully contribute. And that happens to be like the entire lower and middle classes in the United States of America. And then when that becomes a problem, you run into legal failure, which is the fifth mystery. And it's very funny to me that currently, right now, we are seeing both of those sprint head on into each other, with the banking lobby concerned about capital and deposit flight as a result of stablecoin yield potential, which is an indicator of political awareness that they have never treated anybody that uses their products or their services, their bank, with any degree of respect. And now the second that something in their dog shit model gets threatened, they're all up in arms and outspending everybody they can possibly get in front of to lobby Congress to protect them and their shitty monopoly. And I just think that is like pointed and satisfying to watch. And if all of us can join on something financial, it's probably a disenfranchising moment with banks. So full speed, political awareness and legal failure running right into themselves with that stupid industry. And
dude,
that's
I have a video that is, I need to do it. I've had it on my notes. Have you guys seen all these videos on socials about people who are against crypto because crypto, they say, is actively harming or going to harm banks, specifically small community banks, mostly those run by marginalized business owners who give loans to marginalized people. And I was like, hold the phone. One of my good anarchist activist friends said this to me. And I was like, hang on a second.
It's proof of illiteracy is what that is.
I said, are you, first of all, are you defending corporate usury, like the practice of banking? You're defending banks? I was like, first of all, it's a good, I would like to make a video acknowledging that, yes, perhaps Coinbase with its superior yield is giving consumers who aren't okay a better return on their dollar, which is constantly inflated. And so we should be critical of them. But also, like, crypto gives money such a velocity that lending and borrowing directly with other people for the first time on the internet is truly possible. The banks are doing such a hit job. The lobbies, we brought one up on the show the other day. I know we got to get out of here, but it's wild how they have framed this conversation and gotten away with it. So we got to push back on that.
It's proof of illiteracy and brainwashing that you have people who, by all accounts, are on paper progressive democratic socialists who are somehow out here defending the banking lobby because the only
wild job
we can draw in the entire crypto space is World Liberty Financial. It's like everything in crypto is World Liberty, and everything in banking is this like one small community-owned credit union in some small town that is doing really good work. And those are the only two things that exist. It's complete tunnel vision. It's dishonest at its worst, and it's just illiterate, like altogether.
I guess I'll believe banks that they care about rural communities and rural community banks when they actually put a JP Morgan in the middle of cow country or something like that. So yeah.
Well said.
100%.
Okay, everybody, we've got to go. Thank you for being the very best part of what we do. We appreciate the comments, the likes, the shares. We see it all now or in the future. And if you're listening in the future, remember what I said. Leave us a little review, leave us a comment, and remember, we hope your candles are green. Until next time, everybody, stay safe, be well, my friends.